was doing Uber Eats on the side after work to save as much as possible to get to that second property sooner.
You're about to listen to the story of a young man that dreamt of success only to make a ton of the wrong choices.
Having 32K in savings to 20K in debt.
What turned it around?
What turned it around was
Casey Taylor, now successful property investor and founder of Tailored Property Wealth, unpacks how he turned a string of bad decisions into an $8 million property portfolio.
I saw my dad working extremely hard but not taking risk right at the end of the day. Sometimes just those daily habits that a lot of people aren't doing, if you do them consistently, add up.
Can you talk to me about property number one?
First property I didn't purchase until 2020.
Mate, that's brilliant. And we're not talking about 20 years worth of growth. This is an $8 million portfolio that's been built in under 5 years.
I didn't go through all this working 2 jobs for literally like 5 years, get to the position to purchase and not fucking do it.
We're going to be unpacking the list of 3 things that you really couldn't have done this without.
First one is not being afraid to use lender's mortgage insurance. 250,000 growth in less than a 2-year period, not during COVID. Lesson number 2, block out all the doom and gloomers. Number 3 is just...
Mate, that is so true. Get ready to have a look behind the curtain of how an everyday young Aussie turned his life around from average choices in his 20s that I'm sure a lot of us can relate to into an unbreakable determination and work ethic that has resulted in a huge portfolio in under 5 years. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast, and you're listening to my chat with Casey Taylor. Casey Taylor, how you going, man?
Good, thanks.
Mate,
how are you, Todd?
I'm good. It is good to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's an honour.
And mate, I've seen you around Instagram for a little while. You and I have had a few chats for a little while now, but it's time to unpack your story.
Yep.
You got a pretty cool one for no one that's heard of it before. You got almost $8 million portfolio, 7.9 something or other, almost 300 grand a year rental income coming through that.
Yep.
One of the really impressive things, you've done this by 33 years of age, and you've only been investing for, 6 years?
It'll be coming up 5 years next year.
So 5. Okay, 5 years. Mate, you've built it pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot to unpack here. And I know that we're going to be unpacking the list of 3 things that you feel that you really couldn't have done this without, some of those real key parts a little bit later in the episode. But I wanted to actually start a bit more towards the beginning. Like, did dad get you into investing? Was there like external influences? Like, how did the Casey Taylor story start?
I think what really initially sparked my interest in property was around 11 years of age, and we started to build a family home at that point in time. I started to draw like floor plans and all that sort of thing, and that kind of just sparked that initial interest in property. But as time went on, I really started to kind of get a desire to be able to build a portfolio to change my financial future. I saw my dad working extremely hard but not really taking risk right at the end of the day, and purchasing outside that owner-occupied property to build additional wealth.
What's extremely hard to find that? Like, dad works extremely hard. He's doing what, 40-hour weeks? Or are you talking like really pushing it, like 50, 60?
Yeah, so he'd work like 7 till 5, Monday through Friday, and then work every second Saturday in the family business. So
yeah, right.
For me, he just consistently worked hard, didn't really have any days off. Didn't ever call in sick or anything like that. He was just a consistent hard worker.
And what was the family business?
Family business, my pop created, and it was industrial supplies, tool supplies, and they built up a pretty good brand within Tamworth, where I'm from. Yep. Yeah, that was the family business, which they did eventually sell, but yeah, didn't really invest outside of the business, right? And that really solidified as well. You can build up a business and you can generate income through business, but you really need to be investing outside of that as well, right?
Need the asset base.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And so what age are you when you're starting to realize this? You're like in your teens, your 20s? When?
I was in my teens, I think, yeah, because so what I wanted to do in year 12 was to study and do my real estate course. Okay. Which I didn't do at that time, but then 2012, after a couple of years in management, just in retail, I did my license in real estate, 2012. So
become like an agent.
It was to become an agent. Yeah. So that was kind of the thought process, that I wanted to do that, become a real estate agent, right? But I knew always that eventually I was going to move outside Tamworth, and I didn't want to build up a database build this up locally just to then go and uproot and have to do that again in a couple of years.
Geographically locked job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why once I completed that, I kind of pivoted and I just got into finance, right? Started as a bank teller locally and worked there for a couple of years until I ultimately moved. And the decision was kind of finance and property go hand in hand in a way. Mm-hmm. So I can still be building up skills and building up a career that's going to still benefit that once I do ultimately move.
Okay, so you're in your teens as you're kind of looking at this going, wait a sec, Dad's working pretty hard, doesn't have as much to show for it, for how hard he's working as what you thought at the time. But then you're 33 and you've done this in 5 years, so you didn't start pulling the trigger until late 20s. What's going on in your 20s?
Yeah, so I worked 2 jobs and saved a fair bit of money around that same time that I was doing my real estate course. What I then did after that, I got into finance. I stopped working 2 jobs and I naturally fell into a habit of a small kind of country town as I started to party a fair bit for a period of time. And with that, I kind of lost sight of some goals and I had this really good savings and then I made this stupid decision to go out and buy WRX with cash and pretty much soak up all of my savings.
So you've been working super hard, but by the sounds of things, partying pretty hard as well.
Yep.
Okay, talk me through that moment. Do you have like a circle of friends that are like, nah, man, you only live once? Like, or are you that friend to yourself at the time going, yeah, YOLO? Like, why are you saving so diligently? You've already got that base of like, yeah, I can see this real estate stuff going. Was it a switch? Like, why did you spend it on the car?
I needed to upgrade my car at the time.
Yeah.
And I wanted the WRX. I got it in my head. I went and looked at it. I took it for a test drive. And if you drive a WRX, they're pretty fun to drive. And
I have not driven one.
I bought it that day. I bought it that day. So
and how old?
I would have been 23 at the time because that was it started 2024.
Okay.
2014, I should say.
So 2014. Gotcha. Okay. So 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you started on a pretty good trajectory, started partying though. Things started going downhill a little bit as far as like concentration's concerned, I'm guessing, like focus on the goal.
Yeah.
The goal then took a big back seat when you were like, nah, test drove this car. This is what life's about.
Yeah.
Committed to the car. And where to from there? Because this isn't sounding like a story to get you to $8 million portfolio so far.
It definitely is not, no. So then after that, I decided I was going to do a Europe trip and I pretty much soaked up all my cash to pay for that Europe trip. And then I hadn't even been on the Europe trip yet. So then I went and got a personal loan to pay for the month overseas. So
okay. And when you're talking partying pretty hard, like are we talking like proper like party or just drinking party? Like how much do you want to open up on this?
Let's just say I was partying pretty hard each weekend.
All right. So there's a bit of money being spent on this as well. That's what I mean. This isn't just like get a 6-pack with a couple of mates.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Doing it well.
Okay. All right. If you do something, do it right. Eh? Yeah.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a very all or nothing person. So that can be positive and it can be negative.
I think this is why you and I have gotten along very well from day dot. We're very similar in that sense, man. If you're going to do something, it's the whole reason I can't drink now because if one's good, 20's even better.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're similar.
That's why I don't drink much anymore.
There you go. All right. So 2014, you're driving around a WRX. You're feeling pretty cool. I've got to ask actually, like you've been saving so much. Is there a little part of you at that time that's like convincing yourself it's all right, I'll get it back on track? Or did you actually just not care anymore? It's like, no, I don't actually want that anymore.
It's not that I made a cognitive decision that I didn't want that, but I think what naturally happens is when you're getting on the piss every single weekend, you kind of lose track of like focus and goals. So I just kind of deviated from that and didn't have any forward projection on where I wanted to be in 12 months, which is what I had done for years prior to that.
Got it.
So I just naturally kind of fell out of way. All right. As such.
And so things start sort of looking up, 2015, 2016? When do you start getting things back on track?
Well, I do start to get things back on track in 15, 16, but I thought I'd take it one step further and my car did too, and it blew up. New engine, new turbo in that car. So that was another $14,000 that I had to go and borrow to fix the stupid car.
Okay, so now you're in debt to the tune of how much?
It was about 20K.
20K in debt. All right, so $20,000 in debt and around that, 2014 sort of mark?
Yep. Back end of 2014.
Okay. What turned it around?
What turned it around was when I had to take my car to the mechanic or get towed to the mechanic, and they called me, and I remember it being a lunch break sitting in my finance job, and they told me it was going to be 14 grand to fix it. I nearly fell off my chair. It was a pretty emotional conversation to have, going from the start of that year, having 32K in savings, to now having to be 20K in debt just from a couple of stupid decisions. Arguably, obviously, I travelled and I did have fun, experienced an overseas holiday, but there was definitely some decisions in there that ultimately got me there. And it was just kind of, that was really the smack in the face that, okay, it's time to pull your finger out and get back on track.
Talk about the moment. Were you on lunch break when you were on that call?
Sure was.
Yeah? Where are you sitting? You're in like the back room?
I was in the back room.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of a little bit like cluttered.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit of storage boxes. Yeah.
It was a depressing place to be, let me tell you.
That's what I'm trying to actually picture right now. Like you're getting this bad news. You're not sitting on a beach somewhere getting it. You're like in this kind of like waiting cupboard kind of feeling. And it's like, all right, things have got to change now.
Yeah.
So there wasn't like an influence of a person. It wasn't like a rich dad, poor dad situation or anything like this. This was more of just this isn't what life's supposed to feel like realization.
Yeah. It was just, it's not where I want to be, or not where I had plans for years prior, and now based on just some poor decisions that I've made and some habits for that period of time, I'm now in a really bad financial position that I'd never been in before. I worked 2 jobs as a teenager, worked all the way through to get into this really good savings position, and now I'm in debt. It was a tough pill to swallow, for sure.
I don't know if it's a Tony Robbins thing or who it is. I think it's Tony Robbins. It's not what happens to you, it's what you make it mean. That's what really changes your life.
Yeah.
And like, if you're listening to this right now, you're watching this, I bet you anything there's something that you can actually relate to about what Casey's saying. There's a moment that you've gone through that was just rubbish, that was not on your agenda to happen in your life. This is now being used as motivation, as fuel to really kickstart things. And I think, to me, this is where I see this as one of the superpowers that you and I haven't talked about with you, but I think you really have, Casey, is that you've got the situation of something that a lot of people would be like, oh, now life's even worse. Would have been so easy for you to then jump on that bandwagon of, see how hard things are? I'll never get into this. I'll never be able to become that, and start that narrative. But instead, you ended up choosing to follow the narrative of, this isn't where I want to be. What do I need to do to change things? And change them you did in a very, very good way.
Yeah.
And so, but there's still a big gap between actually purchasing though. So did you just go into what, like sacrifice mode, saving? Did you start educating yourself? Like what happened from there?
Yeah. So what happened was, pretty much straight after that, I was like, okay, I need to go and get a second job right now.
Yeah.
And turn this around, because what I was putting into savings 18 months ago, let's call it, I'm now going to be putting into paying this debt off as soon as possible. That was my mindset. I need to get rid of this and just smash it out as fast as possible.
What'd you do? What was the second job?
So second job, for those people in Tamworth, was a safari club, bar and grill. It's a cracking place. It's even worth the drive to Tamworth just to get the food there.
Okay.
Delicious stuff. But that's a topic for another day. But yeah, so I started continuing to work in finance and then doing that as a second job just to make that additional money and pay straight off that debt.
And so what are you doing, like 50, 60 hours a week?
Yeah, between 50 and 60,
50.
maybe about 55 roughly.
How long did you do that for?
The 2 jobs kind of thing took place for a period of time of years after that, because I had to pay that debt off.
So this wasn't just a quick 6 months?
No.
You really buckled in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I was working 2 jobs probably until I think it was the start of 2021.
What's your support network like at the time? You got a girlfriend at the time?
No, single.
Single. Okay.
Single.
Social life?
It was that time where you're hanging around the boys a lot. That's what you're doing a lot. I had a younger brother at the time at home, but yeah, a lot of the time was still just going out, hanging out with friends, that sort of thing. But it was really shifting if I'm working Friday, Saturday and making additional money, I can't really go out and party, right? So, and that's kind of what I forced myself to do just to stop partying as much, right? Was occupying my time around that.
What do they say? Idle hands are the devil's playground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good way to do it. So instead of trying to go, I'm just going to sit at home and watch Netflix and chill out and save money, you're like, well, I'm actually just going to go get a job, earn more money, and keep me away from the safari clubs we're working, but whatever bars you're going out to.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, and what was it that kept the focus? Because I think it's easy, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, getting inspired for a little bit, going hammer and tongs on something, and then, well, kind of like you did originally, you were such a diligent saver to begin with.
Yeah. As
a young man in his early 20s, saving up, was it $34,000?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it's Europe, it's cars, it's stuff like that. Why didn't you go down that route again? What kept you focused?
I just didn't want to be in that financial position.
So it's more the stick than the carrot.
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't want to. I didn't want that feeling as well, right? Like just being in 20K debt it was an awful feeling for me at the time after being in such a good position, and I just knew I was not going to stay there. That was the catalyst and motivation just to get back on track.
What was the feeling? Can you put it into words?
I felt like I failed a little bit, to be honest. A lot of anxiety and just disappointment in myself, I think, because ultimately it was my decisions that got me to that position. I think I truly believe that if I wasn't partying and all of that, maybe the car wouldn't even blew up, because I might have noticed that those things. I don't know why it happened, right? Yeah, it was my decisions that ultimately got me to be in that position, and I took accountability for that.
Are you reading at the time? Is there something that's helping you keep on track?
I don't think I was reading at that time, no. There was definitely years before that where there was a good book I read called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Classic.
Which, really solidified some stuff while I was in that savings phase, right? And then I was so motivated to build a portfolio. And I remember one of the goals I actually set when I was studying real estate, my TAFE teacher said to create goals and put them on the wall. And it was
like a vision board.
Yeah, exactly right. And I hadn't really thought of that at the time, but I created a goal that was 10 properties by 30. Really not understanding what it meant to get to that, right? But that was a goal I had. And then now a couple of years later, I'm 20K into debt. So
yeah, okay. And so this is almost that slap in the face that you're talking about. It's not where I want to be.
Slap in the face with a salmon.
Yeah.
Bang.
With a what?
With a salmon.
Oh, a salmon?
Imagine getting hit in the face with a salmon. That's what it felt like.
You mean like a fish, a salmon?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Like an Atlantic salmon? I don't know. Bang.
Yeah, that would not be comfortable.
No, it wasn't.
All right. So after being fish slapped, you're
by myself. Yeah.
You're on track. You're now like, can you talk to me about property number one? What year is it? When's it happening? What's it look like?
Well, that happened years later. Like, it took me ages to get back on track to get rid of that debt, right? And then once I was out of debt, it was like, now I've got to save consistently for years to be able to
get the deposit.
Get the deposit and purchase the property. So first property I didn't purchase until 2020 was when I finally got the savings together to be able to purchase
so you got
first property.
5 years pretty much between I've made a bad choice to getting back to buyer ready.
Yeah. So I think it was 2016. It was 2016, 17 where I got back to now I'm saving money again. So it took a period of time to smash that off. And then 2017 where I was starting to absorb as much knowledge as I could around property. That's when I started really getting into that.
And how are you doing that? You reading the magazines that used to be around, like podcast, books? What are you doing?
Yeah, it was podcasts. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad again. I visited that book again, which just really motivated me to get back on track to where I wanted to be, right? Yeah, I was reading ebooks, all that sort of thing. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was lots of knowledge.
And where'd you end up getting the first one?
So the first one was a Brisbane purchase. Yeah, North Brisbane. March 2020, which is, as you know, COVID. It's when things were starting to go crazy. There was line-ups at the grocery store just to get toilet paper. So
that was very COVID then as well.
Very COVID.
Yeah.
Real COVID.
I remember that. We stopped making fun of it around then.
Yeah.
Do you remember like around December 2019?
Yeah.
People were still picturing like posting pictures of Corona beers going, oh, I've got Corona. Yeah.
Well, I remember we were in Melbourne in February just before that. And there was like things on the wall when we were going through the streets there about the whole COVID thing. And then all of a sudden, let's call it 6 weeks later, we're heading into that first lockdown. It's pretty crazy.
And you thought it'd be a good idea to buy a property?
I did.
Why?
Well, I'd just been saving for however many years, right? I was going to buy that property. So I guess there was a lot of people saying, oh, you probably shouldn't be buying right now with everything going on. But because I'd put so much knowledge into where I should be buying, what I should be buying, I was pretty confident that it was going to continue to perform. And I'm going to hold that property for 20 years. So what's it matter what even happens right now? As long as I purchase and hold that long term, it's going to do well. So that's why I purchased.
And I'm assuming you've got a bit of friends and family saying, no.
Yeah. I remember showing a couple of friends the property. I was like, obviously in discussions, I'm gonna purchase the property, and they were like, oh, you probably shouldn't buy that property, and there's really no substance to that.
And these are friends with runs on the board or just general mates?
Just general mates.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, it doesn't look like a good property, like just visually, right? It's just like an emotional thing. But I still bought that property, luckily.
Tell me about it.
So that property, North Brisbane, like I said, had some requirements, had to be on a minimum 600 metre squared block and was a house, 4 bed, 2 bath, 1 carport property. So that was kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Paid $435,000 and about a 5% gross yield at the time as well. So, and because of that time, like rates were pretty good.
Pretty cheap.
Pretty low. So it was pretty much sitting neutrally geared, which was awesome.
Okay. And so property, I'm just trying to figure out what gave you the confidence to do that. We're in a global pandemic. You've made poor decisions in the past. You've realized your ways. You've then got yourself out of the hole. You've saved up a whole bunch of money. And now you're like, no, I'm just doing it. Was it almost like, were you that confident you were right? Or was there almost just a little bit of stubbornness of like, I haven't just saved for the last 4 years for this to get in my way. This is happening. Like, which one, or is it kind of both?
It was probably both. Now that I look back on it, I thought it was just a confidence thing, but it was probably a bit of stubbornness too. It's like, I didn't go through all this working 2 jobs for literally like 5 years to get out of that hole, get to the position to purchase and not fucking do it. So. Okay.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to kind of open up is how the properties link together a bit more, because how are you getting then from property number 1 into 2? You saving up cash again? You're using like equity? What's going on?
Yeah, so for that first purchase, I went in with a 5% deposit. So I'm paying lender's mortgage insurance to get into that property. Now, because I leveraged so high, I knew if I wanted to get to that second property as quick as possible, I was going to have to save for that property. So I continued to work 2 jobs even after I bought that first property. At the time, I was working in finance, and it was a really stressful job at that point in time. And I was doing Uber Eats on the side after work. As soon as I finished, I was going out, doing that, doing it on the weekends to save as much as possible in the shortest amount of time to get to that second property sooner.
Talk to me about Uber Eats, mate. Why didn't you tell me that earlier?
It was a little curveball.
That's a hard slog. Like, you don't get paid bugger all and you work a fair bit.
Yeah. What I would do is obviously working after hours in peak times, it wasn't as bad, right? But it was a combination of 2 things. Is one, it was super flexible, so I could do it when I could, right? I didn't have to have a boss to say you have to finish now or start now. So that was a positive. But one of probably the most powerful things is that entire time while I was doing Uber Eats is I was listening to podcasts on property. So I was making additional money, but I was building up knowledge just to become more and more educated around property. So it was a very, very good decision, I believe, to be able to get into that second one, but the knowledge as well.
Mate, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it was pretty good to be able to build that knowledge, I think.
I've got to ask, because I know a few people that have sat in the exact chair that you're sitting in that are now worth tens and tens of millions of dollars. Like, they've got a lot of runs on the board, similar to yourself, like amazing achievements. What we don't see is the days of the Uber Eats type jobs, Some of the people, they were bartending, and it's like, look at them now. To think of them taking your drink order almost seems laughable, because now they're driving around in Ferraris and whatnot. And it's kind of like, the thing that I want to ask is, anyone that thinks like, oh, I'm not going to do that, or like, what will my friends think of me? How do you tune out all of that noise and just go, I don't care, I'm just doing it? Like what, or did you not even have that noise? Has it just always been, I don't give a shit, I'm just doing it?
Yeah, I don't think I really cared. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I was driving around in a clapped out Holden Rodeo at the time doing Uber Eats, which wasn't the best car to be doing it in. And I was probably a little bit embarrassed to be doing it. But the drive for wanting to continue to kind of get to where I wanted to be was far more important than what people thought about me. And as time goes on, I just care less and less what people think about me, and just blocking that out, because if you get caught up in that, it'll cripple you, right? So, yeah, it was far more important to get to where I wanted to be than what people thought about me.
Is there anything you do on like a daily basis to keep on top of that?
That's a good question. I think it's just really important to understand your purpose and what you're trying to achieve. And if you really understand the core of your purpose, your mission, then it just outweighs all those other things and what people might think of me or whatever else. My core purpose is to help as many people as possible, right? But to be able to build up a future for my family and create choices and freedom for my family. So that is my mission. And the rest, it's easy to deal with that.
So you feel if the purpose is strong enough, the negative noise can be tuned out easier?
I think so. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. And as far as finding your purpose, now, as a BA, I know that you're doing a lot of good in the space, but you weren't always doing that job. Did you always have that even when you were a lender? It's like, sick, I love writing this loan, helping someone get into a property, or is that something that's a little bit newer for you, the purpose side?
Like I said, years earlier, I wanted 10 properties by 30, right? Which I didn't really understand, but I just knew that I wanted to create a better future for myself.
Yep.
So that's what really drove me, I think.
Okay.
And prove it to myself, right? That you can just be an average dude and get to your goals, right? Set some stretch goals and just reach them.
How much does Uber pay you again?
Oh, I don't know how much it is now, but I think so back then, right? And one of the most powerful things is I would work every single Sunday morning. I would go to the gym first thing in the morning, and I'd start Uber at like 8, and everyone's hungover and they're ordering Uber Eats. So at that point in time, I was making like $50 an hour.
Doing Uber Eats?
Yeah, it was good. It was good on a Sunday because the demand was there, and not everyone's out doing it, right? Because everyone's hungover or whatever else. So that point in time, it was pretty good. But it would fluctuate. It might be like $25, $30 an hour. But then those peak times, it could be quite good, right?
Talk to me a little bit more about, and this is I think Simon Reynolds' book, Zig while the others zag or something. And it sounds like it's kind of exactly what you're describing there. It's like everyone else has been out partying Saturday. They're feeling like rubbish on Sunday. You're up at 6 a.m. going to the gym and then delivering them food to cash in. Is that something that you adopted in other areas of your life then after that?
I think so. One of the things that I do now is I don't really drink all that often at all. I haven't had a drop of alcohol all year. And that's like, we could go on a whole tangent about drinking, but I think it's a poison in a way, and a motivation killer. And I kind of learnt that firsthand from going through my party stage and it killing my goals and stuff. But sometimes just those daily habits that a lot of people aren't doing, if you do them consistently, add up.
Just in case if you're interested in that as well, because I don't talk about it much on the show, but Casey and I very much see eye to eye on this. There's a book called This Naked Mind. If you're on the fence about drinking, as someone that used to quite be proud of drinking liters of vodka a week.
Oh, rough.
Yeah, it'll flick a switch in your head if you are interested. I don't know if you've read that at all.
I haven't, no, but I might check it out.
Wonderful book. But so basically you're looking at it as going, okay, now that used to take away so much from me. So I'm going in the opposite direction and I'm not going out. Everyone else is going out, they're partying. I'm going to make some money off of this. And you're now continuing to do Uber for how long?
Oh, I honestly did it for about 2 years, I think, maybe even a little bit longer. Yeah, all the way through right until the start of 2021, which was not long before I then ultimately purchased my second property.
So your growth has been rapid then, mate. So 2021, you're purchasing your second. You and I are now recording this, the back end of 2024.
Yeah.
So you've gone from 1 in 2020 to 2 in 2021, and then talk us through 2022.
So 2022 executed on a couple more purchases. And that's the powerful thing, right? Is like once you get those couple and they start to perform, then you can go back and extract those equity from those first couple to be able to go into more and more property. So that's something that people don't understand, which I think is really, really powerful.
Can you help them understand it better?
So when I purchased number 1 and number 2, they were both extremely leveraged. But then to go to those 3 and those 4, you can go back and extract those equity from 1 and 2 for deposits on 3 and 4. And then all of a sudden I wasn't having to save to be able to purchase those next properties like I did those first couple, right? So it's just that power of letting your money work for yourself to get to those 3 and 4. And then once you get those 3 and 4, then all of a sudden to get 5 and 6, you're leveraging back off 3 and 4 to go again. And then as 1 and 2 continue to perform, you might access some more back out of those again to go again and again into those other purchases.
And are you doing anything to add value to these as well? Like you're a country boy. I'm guessing you're a bit handy. You're doing some renos.
I'm not as handy as you would think.
No? Okay.
Oh, look, I can be handy, but my mindset with investing for me personally was I wanted to take that little bit more passive approach to investing.
Got it.
And those first couple I didn't add value to. Though both those first couple I've now renovated, but I just leverage tradespeople to be able to do that, freshen those properties up.
Got it.
And it's kind of that thing, right? I have the mindset every probably 5 years you're gonna do a bit of a reno and freshen those properties up, right? But yeah, I haven't really lifted too much of a finger on those properties at all. Recent purchase, which is obviously owner occupied, might change that and I'll do it a little bit myself, but
Bit different when it's the family home.
yeah, it's a little bit differently.
Yep. Okay. All right. So you're off to a rocky start. You've obviously got a phenomenal work ethic. Don't give a crap what anyone thinks, which I feel like is one of your superpowers here, mate. But then you're pushing past like sort of that 4 or 5 rentals. Most people get stuck around that kind of 3 or 4. But then if we even move to like 6, something like 1% of the population, according to the ATO, have 6 or more rental properties. It's a pretty amazing achievement in itself. But the thing that I wanted to kind of drill down on a little bit is, how did you keep going? Why didn't you end up being the biggest statistic and get stuck?
There's probably a couple of different factors. And I think, and this is what I say a little bit with investors, is sometimes it's not even the income point of view that holds them back. It's just simply their mindset, right? Being able to go out there and purchase. They might have borrowing capacity, but they don't have the courage to go out and purchase. They might not be confident with the purchase or whatever that looks like. So getting the purchase right, getting in an area that's performing and getting those results, it builds up that equity so you can then extract into those further purchases and not have to really save for every single deposit. As well as over time, what also happened is my income has increased, right? So borrowing capacity has continued to be strong, leverage off those equity to go into those further purchases.
When did you realize the income piece? Because it sounds like you weren't earning much for a long time. It sounds like now the business is doing a bit better. You're getting a good wage out of it. But did that take a while to click as well? Because I talk to a lot of people about that, and it's like, I don't know, to me it's kind of obvious now, but it wasn't in the beginning days either.
You need the income, right? And you need that income to increase, because you don't just have this magical serviceability that never ends, right? But it is being strategical with some of those purchases. But you have to understand as well, over time you need to increase your income, or sometimes you just need to understand that you might need to sit for a little bit and revisit and keep revisiting until you can go again.
Because I kind of look at it as you've got 2 things to focus on really as a property investor. And there's all these different runoffs from those. One of them is equity, and the other one is serviceability. Your serviceability can come in the form of good yields. It can come in the form of your job. The equity can come in form of like just general capital growth. It can be forced capital growth. But either way, if you go to the bank with just one of them, you got great equity and no serviceability, that doesn't matter how educated, driven, hardworking you are. They're like, man, you got to put this one up a little bit, and vice versa. You got amazing serviceability but no equity. It's like you need to put this one up a little bit. So it sounds like you started figuring out that balance really between both of them, applying the hard work ethic, applying the education, taking action on them. But then you're starting to get the runs on the board to have the confidence to keep going. Because by the sounds of what you're saying there, that's what you've seen a lot of is people could actually keep going. They get to 3 or 4. They've maybe got a bit of equity, got some good serviceability, but it's maybe a bit more of a mindset shift.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I see people a lot, they're like, well, I've got all this equity and they might not have a job or whatever. It's like, but you need to be able to show to the banks that you can service the debt, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might be working 2 jobs and increasing your income. And you might need to do that consistently, right? You might have a full-time job and you get an additional job that's helping boost up your serviceability. And then sometimes it's going to be just the environment and where rates are at, and progressively over time, rates might reduce a little bit, your borrowing capacity increases, and that's where you straight away and you go and revisit your portfolio. Mm-hmm. You go and get valuations done and see where your equity's at so you can extract that. And it's just being proactive as an investor, revisiting the portfolio, understanding where you can pull certain bits and pieces to be able to go again sooner.
Do you actually put that into your schedule?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that? Because this is something that Bianca and I have been doing somewhat of late.
Yep.
And I'd love to say that we do it every week because we're supposed to, but we don't. Mm-hmm. It's more of a once a month thing. We'll look at things and what's going on, what are the goods, what's the bad, and kind of do a bit more of a review. Mm-hmm. Are you every week, or are you a once a month, once a quarter? What are you doing?
I'd probably say it's about once a quarter, maybe a little bit sooner.
Yep.
Obviously, this is what I do now, right? So I'm focusing on it a little bit more. But sometimes it's just, keeping an eye on comparable properties even, and understanding what's that going to mean for a valuation on that particular property that might lift it up and give you that equity that you need. So I would say quarterly, but probably a little bit more often than that. So maybe
almost a once a month.
Yeah, without even realizing I'm doing it cognitively. Yeah.
Okay. If someone's going, okay, of course you made all this money. It was 2020, COVID exploded, all this kind of stuff, big capital gains. How long do you think it would actually take you now, 2024, 2025, if you were to start again? You're doing Uber, you're working at the bank, you've got your very first property. Do you reckon how long would it take to build up to 8 mil?
Maybe quicker, I don't know. But it's really important to purchase in those areas that are performing and understanding those fundamentals. Mm-hmm. And you can look at some marketplaces around Australia right now that haven't done that well over the last couple of years. And if you purchased in those marketplaces, you could have lost a little bit of money or just sat stagnant and flat. So it's really understanding those areas that are prime for growth, understanding that affordability piece, mm-hmm. where markets aren't at their borrowing capacity ceiling, right? And you know that they've got that room for growth. So that asset selection component of it is crucial. Without that, you can't continue to build on that because you're having to manually save up those cash deposits to go again and again. Mm-hmm. So that capital growth component is super, super important. So
you're looking at it as, whilst you've enjoyed some pretty awesome growth through the whole COVID boom, you're basically going, it's not the last time that properties are going to grow. It's now just about focusing on finding those areas that are going to then offer that growth moving into 25, 26, 27.
Yeah. Some of the performance on just some of the recent purchases, I purchased a property that settled February 2023 last year. Mm-hmm. Now that property has now grown. I purchased that for $500,000.
Where is this?
This is in Brisbane.
Yep.
West Brisbane. Now I purchased that for $500,000, mm-hmm. and I got a valuation completed this week, revisiting $750,000. So $250,000 growth in less than a 2-year period, not during COVID booms, not during any of that.
Good work, man.
So and we're in an environment where people are talking about markets are going to correct or the interest rates are going to cause corrections. During that period of time, we've still had rate increases, but there's still been massive, massive performance in certain areas. So it's understanding that, purchasing well in those areas prime for growth.
So as far as starting again and getting to where you are now, you don't look at that as like a timepiece of, I could do it in 5 years or maybe longer or possibly shorter. It's just more of I know I could do it again.
Yeah. It's hard to say what timeline. I don't like to give timelines, because if you were to say to me last year when I purchased that property, it's going to grow 250K in that period of time, I would not have projected that it would grow by that much, but it has.
Yeah. You're hoping for it to be revalued like 600 or something.
Exactly right. Yeah. And not too long ago, like saying that I visited on a quarterly basis, I think it was only probably 6 weeks ago I got that valuation completed at 720. So it was really just understanding and getting another val done. I actually manually provided comparable properties to that valuer, so they knew not to kind of be lazy with the valuation process, and that's how we were able to get a stronger valuation as well.
Love it.
So,
and speaking of tips like that, which I think that's always one of them in here as well, 3 lessons that you've got that really accelerated your portfolio growth.
Yeah.
What are the takeaways that if you weren't to have done these, we wouldn't be sitting across from each other right now? We'd be seeing you delivering food still, with all due respect.
I think the first one is not being afraid to use lender's mortgage insurance.
Okay.
Because even just for that first property, not taking into consideration the second, I wouldn't have got the capital growth to be able to go into future properties in the future. And if I tried to save that 20% deposit, right, because we then went through a nationwide boom and prices increased, I could have been priced out and not even been able to purchase based on my income at that time, right? So
actually, that's crazy. You really would have been, wouldn't you? Because if you had have saved it, how long would it have taken you to get to a 20% deposit back then?
I was saving well, but it would have taken me way longer than that, right?
Yeah. I'm just thinking out saving the market back then.
Yeah.
Good luck. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It was a 40% increase during that time, roughly nationwide. A lot of marketplaces did 40%. You can't save that, right?
No. And if you can, you're earning that much money that you...
Exactly.
Yeah, you're good anyway. Yeah, okay. All right, so don't be afraid to use LMI. That sounds like that's lesson number 1.
Yep.
All right, lesson number 2.
Lesson number 2 is just block out the noise from family and friends, mainstream media, all the doom and gloomers out there. Just go out there, take action, purchase those quality properties, make sure you get the property purchase right. But if I listened to what others said, I just wouldn't be in the position I am today, getting that capital growth that I've received.
Out of interest, do they now kind of go like, hey man, like, cool, good on you, we can see you've done well? Or is it still like, yeah, you're going to lose it all at any time? Like, has the negativity shifted?
Yeah, I think it's shifted a little bit. It's like,
yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So block out the noise. And I've got to ask, as someone has already said, you just kind of like don't care about what people think. You're so focused, I'm going to do this. For someone that maybe is a little bit more like, I do actually care. You got any tips to help block that out?
I think something that you need to understand is those people that potentially throwing out that negativity, it might be because they're not happy with where they're at or whatever that is. So understanding that, you don't get negativity from people that are out there giving things a crack. So I think that's just something really important to think about.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of jealousy even.
Yeah, it could be any number of reasons, right? It might just be justifying why they haven't done anything or why they haven't done this or that, or it could be a jealousy thing. There's so many different reasons why people project that negativity, or it's just a lack of understanding, right? Or that education piece.
At number 3, what's the last one on the list?
Number 3 is just really making sure you get that property purchase right. That's going to be crucial. It's the largest purchase of your life potentially, or one of the largest purchases of your life. And you need to have a structured system to go out there and ensure that that purchase is going to perform in a way that's going to create the performance and results you need to get to where you want to be.
Where do you see people getting it wrong?
A prime example is some people just purchase in their own backyard, right? Because it's easier and they can go and make sure that the property didn't run down the road or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that that area is set for growth or going to perform. It might sit flat for 10 years. And then that person who makes that purchase that way goes out to the barbecue and tells everyone how property investing doesn't work, or the property they purchased, it doesn't work. And then it's that negative stigma that gets into other people's heads. So it's important to really go out there and make an educated decision, data-backed approach, right? Get in those areas primed for growth.
I've had to stop myself going to rentals that we've got nearby to do maintenance, because I still got this, I'm the poor kid that earns 38 grand a year in my head, even though that's like very much not our situation anymore. it's hard to shake. And like, I'm actually glad that we've got so many now out of the state that I can't go near, because otherwise, like last time I got some down south and I found myself losing like half a day because I didn't want to pay a tradesperson $300 to fix something that I knew I could fix for $20.
Yeah.
But then it was like, I lost half a day. And I justified it because, but I made like $280. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. Like you could have been at work doing more productive things, like more. So I actually think that there's also some pretty huge benefits of not having it nearby to actually keep that investor mindset in a growth format of how do I keep adding value? How do I keep growing this bigger and better and really designing what I really want, opposed to that small mindset, which, is easy to slip into.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Casey, action step. Before we get to the most important question, what's something that if someone's listened to your story, they're inspired, they're like, I can relate to this dude, I want to be where he's at, what's something they can do right now? Pull out the headphones, put into action straight away.
Maybe something that we touched on before is do a period of time of sobriety, because that can stem into every aspect of your life. Get better sleep, become healthier, have clarity, and you might be able to go out there and reset or create some goals and go out there and achieve things that potentially you thought you couldn't achieve. So I think that would be...
How long? What would you say is the first challenge to set? Like if someone's, I feel like we've already lost half the audience that are like, nah, bugger off, I'm not doing it. And fair enough, you do you. But like for the people that are like, okay, I'm listening, how long do you reckon to actually make a change?
I would probably say like 100 days or 3 months as a good consistent amount of time. I think like 1 month in, you're kind of really only starting to get the benefits. You're starting to get some momentum, but that period of time and those changes that it can influence other areas of your life really start to take effect at like that 90-day mark, I think. 90 days. I like it. That was actually my original challenge. It was just 3 months. I realized I hadn't not drunk for 3 months since I was like 14 or something. Yeah. I was a trouble kid. And I was like, wow, that's probably not good. And then I got to 3 months. I don't know if you've got a similar kind of story when you started doing this. And this was my wife now, girlfriend at the time. And I brought over a bottle of wine to her house and we were newly dating. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, like my 3 months is up. She said, oh, do you want a drink? I was like, no, actually, I don't think I do. Yeah. And I didn't intend to just keep going, but I was like, maybe I'll just leave it today. But then it just kind of kept going because it was like, well, life actually feels a bit better. So I feel like I should talk about this more because I believe it makes such a huge impact. 100%. I genuinely don't think I'd be here where I am right now if I was still drinking the way that I was. You, by the sounds of things, wouldn't either. So as far as an action step's concerned, man, we've never had this as an action step. We've got 500-600 episodes deep. And I think anyone that's listening that really is serious, you're at the end of the episode now, you're wanting to really take things to the next level portfolio-wise, give it a go. Worst case scenario, you only last a few days, a week, whatever it is, at least you tried. Try and beat it next time. But you've got two people right here that are absolutely echoing the same story of this is one of the things that can absolutely change your life. It might not be directly related to property investing, but it has some huge knock-on effects to it. 100%. It stems into every aspect of your life, like I said, and it can really set you up to do some big things elsewhere. Totally, man. Now, the most important question of the entire show, Casey Taylor, what is your favourite pizza? Oh, I like all pizza. I would have to say a pepperoni pizza, but with barbecue sauce on it. Oh, okay. So maybe traditional extra, with a twist. Yeah. Okay. But extra pepperoni, extra cheese. Yeah. Where are you getting this from, man? Where am I getting that from? I think it's Bella Italia in Newcastle. They do a pretty good pizza. Bella Italia? Yep. Okay, that sounds fancy as, man. So you're not making this at home? I can make it at home, but it's definitely not as good as just going and getting it. Are you much of a cook? I am a bit of a cook, actually. I would say I'm a pretty good cook. Yeah? Yes. Okay, but Bella Italia does it a little bit better. They do it a bit better. Okay. Yeah. I don't make the dough from scratch, so... Oh, mate, I've been watching a few TikToks on that lately. There's a few people that just take it to the next level, and it's looking like they're preparing the dough all day. Yeah. Like, I'm still the same. I like to play around with that every now and then, but otherwise, I don't have all day to make dough just yet. I don't at the moment either. No. Maybe sometime in the future. Yeah. You know, one of the biggest takeaways that I'm getting from you personally, Casey, is just
I don't care factor, and not in the don't care because bigger picture, you very much care, but don't care about the smaller things. I think it's amazing that you were delivering Uber Eats, that you were taking a second job to get yourself out of debt when you were younger, that you were just like, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. It's that mentality that I feel like you could take everything away from what you've got right now and you'd probably gain it back in a few years' time, because that's hard to teach. You and I were talking about teaching people off air just beforehand. But I think it's something that can be grown from within. It's not like I want to be 7 foot tall and I'm 6 foot tall or 5 foot tall. Like, you probably can't do too much about that.
Yeah.
But if you want to become someone that just goes, I'm going to make this happen, you can do that by being the person that just keeps pushing forward, by not listening to the no's, by tuning out that negativity, by doing all of the things, by working the extra hours, and then by putting it into practice and making what you've done, man. Like, it's $8 million portfolio in pretty much 5 years' time is nothing short of incredible.
Thanks.
So, Casey Taylor, is there any final words of wisdom or anything else you'd like to add to this episode, mate?
I don't think there is. Just go out there and give it a crack.
Mate, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me.